Welcome to the Four Corners 912 project discussion on rules of the game. For a country to exist peaceably as a unified people in the game of life, we all must be playing by the same rule. The rules for our country were established in the Constitution that was agreed upon to abide by. This was and is the supreme law of the land.
To follow the rules, you must know what they are. They are few and clear. We hope to help you all to better understand what the rules are, as we are looking to elect new representatives in local and state government offices next year.
They take an oath to uphold the constitutions of both the state and the United States.
What are they to uphold and protect?
We will begin this regular discussion beginning with the Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments of the Constitution.
Moving ahead.
Moving along.
Where do we go with our First Amendment?
Well, Congress shall make no law. That applies to the rest of it also. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. Now that's a continuing clause. That's not two separate things. Freedom of speech and freedom of the press came about because of the abuses of the British against the colonies, right? Mm-hmm. And just briefly, the history is that King George and his minions would literally shut down and destroy printing presses. If this particular individual or organization was printing something they didn't like, well, just put them out of business, maybe even arrest them. Ben Franklin had an underground press operation. I mean, he had his newspaper in Philadelphia. I think he had one in Boston, but he also had an underground press. And they searched for it. They tried to put him out of business. Thomas Paine had to do his pamphlets in secret because the British there was a price on Thomas Paine's head for some of the stuff he was writing. So, as a result of that, they said, okay, Mr. Federal Government, Congress shall make no law. Doesn't say anything about Georgia making a law. Congress shall make no law respecting the freedom of preacher or the press. There again, we've thrown that totally around. It's absolutely nuts these days. Do we want the federal government telling the Washington Post what they can print? Nah, we don't want that. But we would like to be able to hold them accountable, to be honest. They're not honest anymore.
No journalists left.
There's no journalism left. Yeah. Think back. When you and I were just young rascals, we didn't have journalists. We had reporters. Mm-hmm. Sat in front of the TV. Read it. Right down the line. Chet Huntley and David Brinkley sat right there and read it. Boom, 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 boom. That's a reporter. Mm-hmm. Now we have journalists. What do journalists do?
Opinion.
I write in my diary, mm-hmm. right? And again, as citizens mm-hmm. and as elected officials, we've fallen for it. Mm-hmm. We can't blame them. We can blame ourselves in a lot of sense. Freedom of speech. The British would shut down stump speeches. Remember? Mm. Right? Somebody get up on the soapbox or give a stump speech, British Army would harass them, try to run them off. And that'll be clear again when we get down to assembly, the freedom, and there's a little interesting wording on that. The right of the people peaceably to assemble. You don't have a right to riot. You don't have a right to get your group together and go out and block I-5 or US 491. You don't have a right to do that. And Congress, and let's mention too that every state constitution reflects all of this stuff. There are clauses in the Colorado Constitution that are identical to this. The wording might be shifted a little, but the thought and the meaning right in this Colorado State Constitution under Article 2. So that's why we have Congress shall make no law, because Congress was their equivalent to the king and the parliament, right? This huge, overpowering government thing. So Congress shall make no law. And the freedom to assemble derived right straight from that same history that the British Crown tried everything they could to put this insurrection down. I don't call it an insurrection very often. I call it a civil war. Right?
Could be true.
Well, one definition of a civil war. Two factions fighting over control of government. Right? That's a civil war. We did not have a civil war in 1860. We'll get into that. And finally, you have Congress shall make no law respecting the right of the people to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Okay, fine. So you can petition the government. What's missing from that?
You tell me.
There's no requirement for Congress to answer you.
That's right.
You can petition all you want and be ready to be ignored.
It's been done several times, as I recall, and nothing's ever happened.
Nothing happened. Same thing with, just simply you talk to your local federal representative or senator. In most cases, it's like talking to a wall. They have no response for you. I had the opportunity to go to a meeting in Durango where Senator Bennett was holding forth. This was during the health care law thing. And I asked him, under what provision of the Constitution do you have the right to pass such a law? And his response was, I am not here to discuss the Constitution. So we have a federally constituted officer not willing to discuss his rule book. Guess what happened? I was roundly dismissed by the crowd that was there. They thought I was rude and abusive for asking a constitutional officer a constitutional question. That's where our citizenry is today, and that's why we're doing this, to try to help folks.
Education is, the fact of education, or lack of education, is that our constitutional officers don't know the Constitution, nor the people don't know the Constitution. So we're floundering down the road.
And hopefully we can help change some of that.
Well, let's wrap this up.
Okay. We'll move on to Amendment 2.